Let's start with the stereotype. I think everyone knows it. You've probably seen the meme where a French speaker whispers papillon.
Oh yeah, the classic internet trope.
Right. The Italian says farfalla, the English speaker says butterfly, and then the German just screams Schmetterling.
Yeah, German is always painted as this angry, harsh, aggressive language.
Exactly. But looking at this massive stack of research we've pulled together for you today, from grammatical guides like Preply and Linguist to cultural breakdowns from Rosetta Stone, that reputation is just totally wrong.
Or at least it's missing the point entirely.
Yeah, the consensus in our deep dive into the source material isn't that German is an angry language. It's that it's an engineered language.
I think that's the perfect way to frame it. I mean, if Romance languages like French or Italian are art painted with broad strokes, German is architecture. It's a machine.
A machine.
Yeah, and the sources are pretty clear about this. If you approach it like an engineer solving a puzzle rather than, an artist trying to express feelings, it stops being scary.
Yeah.
It actually starts being incredible logical.
So our mission today is to take this machine apart for you. We are looking at the ultimate learner's guide to German, and we aren't just going to give you simple tourism phrases.
No, that won't get you very far.
Right. I want to understand the mechanics, the weird social algorithms you have to run in your head, and the shortcuts, what the sources actually call donkey bridges.
Ah, Iselsbrücken. We will definitely get to those.
But first, let's look at the overall strategy, because the sources, specifically the data from Killian AI, paint a pretty daunting picture at first glance.
They do.
They estimate it takes an English speaker about 900 hours to reach true proficiency. That's a lot of time. If I'm a learner, that number makes me want to quit before I even start.
It is a huge number, but you really have to look at what proficiency means in that specific context. It's usually referring to C1 or C2 level.
It was academic mastery, right?
Right, exactly. And you don't need C2 to survive. You don't need it to order a beer or make friends.
So what's the shortcut for someone just starting out?
Well, the Street Insider article brings up the 80-20 rule. It's basically the Pareto principle applied to linguistics. The idea is that 80% of your daily communication comes from just 20% of the language.
Okay, but I always worry about that kind of advice. I mean, if I only learn the top 1,000 words, sure, I can ask where the bathroom is.
Right.
But when the guy answers with a complex sentence about taking the second left after the construction site, I'm going to be totally lost.
That is the danger, yes. Comprehension always lags behind speaking, but the strategy the sources outline is really about focusing on survival phrases and something called modal verbs. This is a massive hack mentioned in the Preply source.
Modal verbs. Walk me through that.
These are words like können, which means can, wollen, which means want, and müssen, which means must.
Okay.
If you master those, you don't need to know the complex conjugation for every single action verb right away.
Oh, I see. So you just say, I want to eat, or I must go.
Exactly. You conjugate the modal verb, and then you just drop the basic dictionary form of the action verb, the infinitive, at the very end of the sentence. You are speaking in full sentences immediately without agonizing over massive grammar tables.
So you're bypassing the really complex rules by using a helper verb. That is a great shortcut.
It gets you from A1, which is essentially just survival mode and introducing yourself, to A2 or B1 much faster. And B1 is really the sweet spot.
The independent user level, according to the roadmap.
Right. The Killian AI breakdown shows that B1 or B2 is where you can handle meaningful social interactions. You can even work in a German office at that level. You really don't need to sound like Goethe to file a tax return.
Which is a relief, because looking at the actual mechanics of this language, sounding like Goethe seems really hard. Let's talk about the rules. You called it a machine earlier.
It is a machine, and the absolute most important gear in that machine is the V2 rule.
Yeah, the sources from Preply make a huge deal out of this. It sounds incredibly rigid.
It is non-negotiable. In a main clause, the verb must be in the second position, no matter what.
Give me an example of how that breaks an English speaker's brain.
Okay, so in English, we are pretty flexible. We might say, today I am going to the cinema. The subject I is second. The verb am going is third.
Right, that feels natural.
But if you do that in German, you are just objectively wrong.
So how do they say it?
Heute gehe ich ins Kino. Literally, today go I into the cinema.
Today go I.
Yes, because today occupies position 1. So the verb must be position 2. The subject I just gets bumped to position 3.
It feels like the verb is this massive anchor and everything else has to physically rotate around it.
That's a great visual. The verb is the sun, and the other words are the planets.
Huh.
But, and here's where the puzzle aspect really kicks in, this only applies to main clauses.
Ah, right. There's a twist.
A big one. If you use a kicker word, what textbooks call a subordinating conjunction, the rules flip entirely.
This is the Yoda thing I saw in the notes.
Yes, the Yoda speak. Words like while, meaning because, or das, meaning that. If you start a clause with because, the verb gets kicked all the way to the very end of the sentence.
So if I want to say, I am eating because I am hungry.
It becomes, I am eating because I hungry am.
Wow. That sounds exhausting to listen to. Doesn't that mean you don't actually know what's happening until the person stops talking?
It absolutely does. Imagine a long, complex sentence about a politician who, despite the economic downturn and the rising inflation and the opposition from his own party.
Resigned.
Exactly. You have to hold all that context in your head until the very last second when the verb drops.
It forces active listening. You can't just tune out the middle part of the sentence.
Or interrupt. You literally can't interrupt because you don't know what the action is yet.
That is wild. I wonder if that changes how Germans argue. But okay, we have the verb anchor. What about the rest of the sentence? Because English is pretty loose with where we put time and place. I can say, I'm going to Berlin tomorrow, or tomorrow I'm going to Berlin.
German is not loose. They use a strict formula called TMP. Time, manner, place.
TMP. So you always state when something happens, then how it happens, then where it happens.
Strictly in that order.
So if I say, I'm going to Berlin by train tomorrow.
That is very wrong. You would have to say, I am going tomorrow by train to Berlin. Time, then manner, then place.
If you mix that up, do people still understand you?
They'll understand you, but you'll sound incredibly chaotic. It's like wearing your underwear on the outside of your pants. The function is there, but the structure is just all wrong.
That's a great way to put it. And we can't talk about structure without mentioning the Lego bricks, the separable verbs.
Ah, yes. Trennbare Verben. This is where a prefix literally snaps off the verb and moves to the end of the clause.
Like aufstehen for getting up.
Right. You don't say I get up at 7. You say I get at 7 o'clock up.
It's that bracket again, closing the thought with the essential piece of information.
It really keeps the listener engaged. You are opening the loop with I get, and you close it with up.
Speaking of loops and mental gymnastics, let's talk about numbers, because the sources from Linguist and Migaku highlight this as a major stumbling block. And honestly, looking at the notes, it seems like a practical joke.
Reverse counting. It's actually a relic of an older Germanic system that English used to have. Think of the nursery rhyme, 4 and 20 blackbirds.
Oh, right. But German just kept doing it.
They kept it. So 24 is 24, 4 and 20.
And 99 is 9 and 90.
99, yes.
Okay, saying it is one thing, you can practice that. But hearing it, that has to be a nightmare for a learner. Imagine someone rattling off a phone number.
It's incredibly difficult. Your brain hears the 4 first, so your hand starts writing a 4. Then you hear 9 and 20, and you realize, wait, the 4 goes in the ones column, and I need a 2 in the tens column.
So you have to mentally buffer the digits and flip them before you write anything down.
You do, and it's high risk, especially if you're noting down a bank account number or a price.
Well, speaking of prices, there is another trap we found in the sources, the punctuation switch.
The comma versus the period. This is huge.
Yeah, in the US or UK, 1000 is written with a comma. 1,000.
But in Germany, 1,000 is written with a period. And the decimal for cents is a comma. So 14 euros and 99 cents is written as 14,99.
So if I'm working in a German finance department and I put in a payment using English punctuation,
You might accidentally authorize a payment of 1,000 euros instead of 1 euro, or vice versa. It's a tiny detail, but it has massive consequences.
it really reinforces that engineer mindset. You have to pay absolute attention to the specs. Which brings us to the biggest spec of all, gender. The 3 genders, masculine, feminine, and neuter. Der, die, das.
And the immediate warning from literally every source in our stack is do not look for biological logic.
None at all. The classic example that every learner hits is the word for girl. Mädchen. It is neuter. Das Mädchen.
Which makes zero sense biologically, but it makes perfect sense grammatically. And this is the paradigm shift learners need to make. Mädchen ends in chen. That is a diminutive suffix. It makes things small or cute.
Okay.
In German, every single word ending in chen is neuter. The grammar rule entirely overrides the biology.
So the machine has a hard rule, suffix determines gender.
Exactly. Words ending in ung, heit, or kiet, they are always feminine.
But for the thousands of words that don't have those neat little endings, say a table or a chair, you just have to memorize it.
You do. Der Tisch, the table, is masculine. Die Lamp, the lamp, is feminine.
That seems impossible to retain. Just rote memorization from a dictionary.
Rote memorization fails most people. The Reddit threads we analyze had a much better technique.
Yeah.
Visualization. You have to make
Yeah.
it visceral.
Like assigning colors to words.
Colors work. Blue for masculine, red for feminine. But one user suggested something much more violent, which is brilliant. Imagine every masculine object is exploding.
Exploding.
Yes. So when you learn the word for table, Tish, don't just picture a normal table. Picture a table violently blowing up into splinters. The brain remembers action and violence much better than static images.
That is amazing. And for feminine words.
Make them frozen. So D-lamp is encased in a giant block of ice.
And neuter.
Maybe it's on fire or it's made of fragile glass. The point is to attach a strong visual hook to the word, so you aren't just blindly memorizing a list.
That right there is a donkey bridge.
That is the ultimate Eselsbrücke.
We have to mention plurals too, because Duolingo and Transparent Language note that you can't just add an S like you do in English to make something plural.
No, it's never that simple.
Yeah.
You might add an N, an EN, an E, an ER. And very often, the core vowel changes. The famous umlaut.
The 2 dots over the vowel.
Right. And a great mnemonic from the sources for this is, the goose has a neck, the geese have necks. In German, it's die Gans hat einen Hals, die Gänse haben Hälse.
So the A actually becomes an A with an umlaut.
Exactly. It captures the vowel shift perfectly in one phrase. If you remember the goose, you remember the rule.
Okay, let's step away from the grammar book for a second. Let's say you've memorized your exploding tables, you've buffered your reverse numbers, and you are actually standing in Berlin. Now you have to navigate the social minefield.
The do versus Z dilemma. This is huge. The Learn German blog stresses that getting this wrong isn't just a simple grammar mistake. It is a social insult.
This is the formal versus informal you.
Correct. Z with a capital S is formal. Do is informal. In English, we just have you. We leveled the playing field a long time ago. But Germany still maintains a strict hierarchy.
So if I meet a stranger on the street, I use Z.
Always. Strangers, police officers, your boss, anyone older than you. Using do too early is like walking into a corporate meeting and slapping the CEO on the back. It's uncomfortably intimate and pretty disrespectful.
So how do you switch? Does someone send out a memo?
It's actually a formal ritual. It's called das Du anbieten, offering the do. The senior person, either by age or by rank, has to be the one to propose it. They might say, please call me Hans.
And until that exact moment, you just stay in your lane.
You stay strictly in the C lane, even if you've worked in the cubicle next to them for 5 years.
That creates a lot of distance.
It does, but it also creates very clear boundaries. It's that structure again. Everything has its place.
What about navigating restaurants? We pulled some tips from Elise Intuition about dining etiquette.
This is another social algorithm you have to run. In the US, the check is often just dropped at the table when you're done. In Germany, you have to initiate the transaction. You signal the waiter and say, "Die Rechnung bitte," the bill, please.
And the payment happens right there at the table.
Yes, the waiter brings the card machine or their literal wallet over to you. And here's the key part about tipping, or trinkgeld. You don't just leave cash on the table when you walk away. That's considered confusing and a bit rude. You round up verbally.
So if the bill is 46 euros,
You hand them a 50-euro note and say, "Stimmt so," which means it's correct like that, or keep the change. Or you just look them in the eye and say, 50.
efficient. I really like that. But efficiency can trip you up if you aren't careful with false friends.
The linguistic traps. Smart Words compiled a terrifying list of these. Words that look exactly like English but mean something completely different.
The most famous one has to be gift.
Oh, absolutely. In English, a gift is a present. In German, gift is poison.
So if you say, I brought a gift for the baby,
It takes on a very, very dark meaning. Do not say that. If you want to give a present, the word is Geschenk.
and then there is mist, M-I-S-T.
In English, it's atmospheric, it's pretty. In German, Mist means manure or dung. That's a very common mild swear word.
Whoa.
Mist.
Basically saying, oh crap.
Precisely. And the one that gets every English speaker at least once is bekommen. It looks and sounds just like to become.
Right, so I want to say, I want to become a doctor.
If you say, "Ich will ein Doktor bekommen," you're actually saying, I want to get a doctor or receive a doctor.
So how do I say become?
The verb is werden. Ich will Arzt werden.
I can see how that leads to some incredibly awkward misunderstandings, like, I want to get a steak versus I want to become a steak.
We have heard that exact one many times. It honestly never stops being funny to Germans.
To truly blend in, though, you need more than just avoiding mistakes. You need idioms. The sources from Rosetta Stone had some pretty bizarre ones.
German idioms are delightful because they're often very domestic or heavily food-based. If you want to say, it's all the same to me, you say, das ist gehupft wie gesprungen.
It's hopped like it's jumped.
Right. It's pure logic. Hopping and jumping are mechanically similar actions, so the outcome is the same.
What about when everything is going really well?
Alice in butter. Everything in butter.
I assume that means everything is smooth.
Yes. It dates back to transporting fragile glassware in barrels. They would fill the barrels with melted butter, which would then harden to protect the glass during the journey. So if it's in butter, it's safe.
That is incredibly specific, and my favorite one from the list is I think I'm going crazy.
Da wird ja Hund in der Pfanne verrückt. The dog in the pan goes crazy.
I don't even want to know the historical origin of that one. It's just a fantastic image.
Dropping an idiom like that signals you aren't just translating word for word in your head anymore. You're actually thinking like a local.
Okay, let's say you're committed. You've mastered the V2 rule. You know not to bring poison to a birthday party, and you want to make it official. You want to work or study in Germany. The sources mention 3 big exams you can take, but they aren't all created equal.
No, they serve very different purposes, and choosing the wrong one can waste a lot of time and money. This breakdown comes from Test German and Deutsch exam. You have the Goethe-Institut, Telk, and Teststaff.
Let's break them down. Which one is the Ivy League certificate?
That would be the Goethe-Institut. It's the cultural ambassador of Germany. A Goethe certificate is recognized globally. If you need a credential for a job in the U.S. or just for personal prestige, Goethe is the gold standard. It's formal and very highly respected.
But what if I'm actually moving to Germany to live?
Then you might want to look at Telk. That stands for the European Language Certificates. This is often the specific exam used for integration courses and gaining citizenship within Germany.
What makes it structurally different from Goethe?
It's a bit more practical for everyday life. And interestingly, the sources note that the speaking section is very often a paired test. You actually take it with another student.
Oh, wow. So your grade partly depends on interacting with another nervous learner.
Yes. It tests your ability to keep a conversation going naturally, to ask follow-up questions, to navigate a real dialogue. It's not just you reciting a monologue to an examiner.
That feels much more real world, but also kind of more stressful. And the third one?
Test staff. This is the strict academic gateway. If you want to enroll in a German university, you almost certainly need this one.
Is it just harder vocabulary?
It's much more specific. It tests your ability to understand complex lecture halls, describe scientific graphs, and argue high-level academic points. It even uses its own specific scoring system called TDN. If you just want to move to Berlin and work in a coffee shop, this exam is total overkill and likely way too difficult.
So Goethe for global prestige, Telk for citizenship and practical life, and Testov for university admission.
That's a perfect rule of thumb.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. We've gone from the stereotype of angry German to the reality of machine German. We've covered the V2 verb anchor, the social minefield of Z, and the sheer weirdness of exploding tables. If we distill this all down for you, the learner, what is the ultimate big takeaway?
The takeaway is that you have to submit to the logic. German doesn't really reward improvisation the way English might. It strongly rewards structure. If you learn the core rules, the V2 positioning, the time, manner, place formula, the noun, suffixes, the whole language just unlocks. It is a high-maintenance machine, but once you read the manual, it runs perfectly.
And that actually brings me to a final thought I've been mulling over while reading all this. We talked about the Yoda sentence structure earlier, how you have to wait until the very end of the sentence to hear the verb, to hear the action.
Right, the sentence bracket.
Think about what that does to a culture over centuries. In English, I know what you're doing immediately. I threw the ball. In German, I have to listen to you describe the ball, the time of day, the weather, and your motivation, all before I actually find out that you threw it.
You literally have to hold your judgment until the period.
Exactly. Does that make German speakers more patient listeners by default? Does the grammar itself practically force you to hear a person's entire argument before you can react to it?
It's a fascinating question of linguistic relativity. It definitely makes talking over someone much harder.
Something to think about while you're practicing your reverse counting tonight. Thanks for taking this depth dive into the source material with us.
Viel Erfolg, much success. See you next time.